Nah, forget the intro. We're going to get straight into it because I am putting this to bed today. I am putting this to bed today. For all of you guys out there, this is dedicated to two kinds of audiences. One, the people who say if you're not playing with items, you're not playing it right, or Smash Bros isn't meant to be played competitively, or it shouldn't be played competitively, or why are you playing it competitively? For those people who are like, oh, you can't turn the items off, that's stupid. Those people, and also for the people who simply say that Smash Bros is not a fighter. And I'm going to dispel the living crap out of that statement. Now, I already know what you guys are going to jump to, right? But Sakurai said so himself that Smash Bros is not a fighter. He just said it recently. Not necessarily. And actually, in the past, multiple times, he stated himself that it is a fighter. And blatantly so. I'm not talking about something he said, oh, you could infer that that's what he meant. No. The man flat out said that Smash Bros is a fighter. He said it multiple times before in the past. But for some reason, everybody seems to just forget about all those past times he said it's a fighter. Now, after I handle this Sakurai situation, I'm actually going to go in depth with Smash Bros Melee and Brawl. I'm going to run down mechanics. I'm going to show you guys the similarities that Smash Bros has between traditional fighters. I'm going to show you just how much Smash Bros has in common with other fighters, because Smash Bros is a fighter. But to the Sakurai situation, right? I got an interview here from 2010, excuse me, from oneup.com. This was done December 2010, right? It's titled, Masahiro Sakurai Reflects on Super Smash Bros. Melee. And in this interview, he says, looking back nearly a decade on, Sakurai seems proud of Melee. I mean, that's OneUp talking. Quote, Melee is the sharpest game in the series, he wrote. It's pretty speedy all around. It adds a lot of your coordination skills. Fans of the first Smash Bros got into it quickly and it just felt really good to play. Now the next paragraph after that says, and I quote, however, he has one particularly deep regret, the game's accessibility level. I had created Smash Bros, listen to this, to be my response to how hardcore exclusive the fighting game genre had become over the years. So right there, the man just said he created Smash Bros for the sake of creating an accessible fighting game. Came from the horse's mouth, people. Came straight from the horse's mouth. I repeat, I had created Smash Bros to be my response to how hardcore exclusive the fighting game genre had become over the years. Going on to a different interview. This one is from insider.com. This is from February 25th, 2008. I'll have the links to these interviews and everything down below in the description, by the way. We have another interview with Sakurai. And he's sitting here pretty much talking about, you know, developing in general and, you know, making fighting games and stuff like that. Why was he talking about making fight? Why was Sakurai on the topic of developers making fighting games? I wonder. But in this interview, Sakurai says, and I quote, the game I worked on, Smash Bros, is a fighting game. That is not a photoshopped image you are seeing. You can click on the link yourself, go to the article, look at it. There's no getting around that. There's no damage control in that. There's no twisting that, nothing. The man flat out said, I quote, the game I worked on, Smash Bros, is a fighting game. And then in the same interview, he says something that is the essence of every fighting game. That's in the spirit of every fighting game enthusiast. At the bottom of the interview, it says, when you experience defeat, you should not feel down or remorseful, but rather praise your opponent for putting up a good fight. This is the essence of Smash Bros. This is the essence of Smash Bros. Now, what does that quote sound like? You should not feel down or remorseful, but rather praise your opponent for putting up a good fight. That sounds like a fighting game to me. And it does to you. And he said this is the essence of Smash Bros. So for those of you saying that Smash Bros is competitive or it shouldn't be played competitively, Sakurai just threw that out the window right there. He threw it out the window right there. He said that he's basically saying sportsmanship, you know, when it comes down to a match between skill, that's the essence of Smash Bros. You know, giving up praise for your opponent for a good fight. That is the essence. That is the fighting game community spirit right there. Thrown out the window. So Sakurai I just gave you guys 2 instances where Sakurai said that Smash Bros is the fighting game. Now I know some of you guys are gonna say, well, what about this latest quote? He said that, you know, it's not a fighting game, right? Maybe not necessarily. I think a lot of people simply just misinterpreted the quote. But either way, you can't use this latest quote because I just gave you 2 quotes from the past, and I'm sure there's more that pretty much counteract or cancel that out. So here's the possibilities, right? Either 1, Sakurai is just crazy and he just contradicted himself. 2, he pretty much changed his perception of the series now, currently. He's just now changing his perception, which would still validate which it's not going to invalidate, you know, the past, how he felt about it in the past. He said he started it off as a fighting game series. It's a fighting game series. Or 3, the quote was simply misinterpreted. Now, these are the only 3 possibilities going on here, right? All 3 of these possibilities means you cannot use this quote as an argument against Smash Bros. Smash Bros is a fighting game. Sakurai said it himself, and I'm going to give even more reasons after this section as to why Smash Bros is a fighter. Now I'm on this other site right here. This is on Event Thubs. Okay, now this is titled Sakurai says Smash Bros isn't a fighting game, although that is not a direct quote from Sakurai's mouth. I'm not saying this is factual, but here's my interpretation of what he meant. But for those of you who haven't read or heard the quote, this is what he said, right? He said, I think the idea of the fighting game genre could be somewhat limiting. People have defined in their own minds what constitutes a fighting game, and that could be such a specific set of characteristics than what other people are viewing the game from the outside, and they learn it's a fighting game. They may predetermine it's not for them simply because of what they expect from it as a fighting game. Now he goes on to say, and here's the quote everybody just flipped their lid about, right? Let me just skip to the actual direct quote. He said, for example, I like to think of Smash as a 4-player battle royale action game. Now that genre doesn't even exist, we know that. You'll notice that this is a lot longer than saying it's a fighting game because fighting game is a completely different label. You could talk about a fighting game or action game or a racing game, but as soon as you define your game specifically in those terms, you start limiting your creative range. So that part right there where he said fighting game is a completely different label, everybody pretty much took that and said, oh, he said it isn't a fighting game. But if you look at the surrounding words and sentences, if you look at the context, this is the way I perceive it, right? He was saying, like in the first paragraph, he said the idea of a fighting game genre could be somewhat limiting. So basically what I think Sakurai is saying is that Smash Bros includes a fighter, you know, it includes being a fighter, but it's not limited to being a fighter. He's saying Smash Bros is more than a fighter, so for him personally, he doesn't consider it simply a fighter. That's what that quote means. You see what I'm saying? If that's not what that means, then the man is just contradicting himself. He doesn't know what he's talking about because I just showed you 2 quotes in the past where he says Smash is a fighting game. So either way, you can't use this little thing. You can't use this quote. Excuse me. You can't use this quote as an automatic win. Oh, see, Smash Bros isn't a fighting game. The creator said it himself. Plain and simple. And like I said, the context to me is pretty much Sakurai just saying that, yeah, it is a fighter, but it's not just a fighter because there's so much more. So that's why I don't actually consider it a fighter. That's pretty much what Sakurai said right there in my eyes. Now that the whole Sakurai situation is over, I'm about to show you guys footage with commentary of the many mechanics and things of Smash Bros, of the Smash Bros games. I am a little rusty on Melee, so some of my wave dashing you guys are going to see, and some of the stuff I do is going to be a little rusty because I really haven't been on Smash Bros like that lately. But yeah, I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to explain to you guys the many mechanics, you know, in and outs, the fundamentals that Smash Bros has that are the same fundamentals that Street Fighter has. Take a look. So now we got all that Sakurai stuff out of the way, and I can actually explain to you guys technically why Smash Bros is a fighting game. Now for some reason, Sakurai himself saying it's a fighting game wasn't enough to convince you that it is one, although when you thought he said the opposite, you know, that was good enough, just saying. If that's not good enough, I'm going to show you guys, break down to you guys the mechanics, fundamentals, and elements that make Smash Bros. A fighting game. People, if Smash Bros. Is not a fighter, then why does it have the fighting game fundamentals? Why does it have fighting game mechanics? Why did Sakurai put mechanics into the game that can be used for, mastery and advanced players to utilize, right? So I have a list here of mechanics, elements, whatever you want to call them, fundamentals of things that Smash Bros. Has, in similarity with other standard typical fighters such as Street Fighter, and also some things that, are kind of exclusive to Smash Bros. So let's get started. Now first we have light, medium, and heavy. A lot of people don't realize this, but Smash has light, medium, and heavy attacks. Your light attacks are the A button jabs. That's your light right there. Your medium attacks are when you simply tilt the stick forward and press A. Those are your medium attacks right there. Now your heavy attacks are in Smash what's called smash attacks, and that's when you kind of jam the stick forward, not trying to break your controller or anything, but that's when you jam your stick forward and you put out heavy attacks that are made for pretty much finishing the opponent off or launching them off the stage, or if they're wide open, going for a heavy attack and get a lot of damage, just like in Street Fighter. So you have your light jabs if you need some quick attacks, break somebody's momentum, just like in a typical fighter. You have your medium attacks, which just like in typical fighters are actually sorry, that wasn't one right there, that are actually used to link or follow up with other attacks, pretty much for your comboing. And then you have your heavy attacks for maximum damage that have more startup than the other attacks. So just like your typical standard fighting game, Smash follows the light, medium, and heavy attack formula. Alright, now these next couple of things I'm going to show you guys aren't really advanced or deep or anything like that, but nonetheless they are mechanics that can be used technically, and they are very important aspects and fundamentals of Smash Bros. And fighting games in general. First thing I'm going to show you guys is teching, and that's, you could call it ground teching, ledge teching. I've seen people call it different things, but that's pretty much, for instance, let's just hit her up here, and you see Sheik just tumbles and hits the ground, right? But if I were to try to tech before I land, tech my landing, I'll stand up instantly and I'll be able to react much quicker with a follow-up attack. So here we go. Oh, whoops. I didn't switch the controllers fast enough. I know this isn't the cleanest tutorial. There we go. That's the teching right there. You instantly stand back up and recover. Also, if you get hit, you could choose to, stay on the ground to, fake out opponents. You make them nervous what you're going to do next. And then you can, roll out of it just like you can in other fighters. Or you could do this, you could get hit up, fall to the ground. You have a wake up attack just like other fighters. Now, like I said, none of this is so deep or technical, but I'm just showing you guys some very basic fundamental aspects of Smash Bros. That are in pretty much every other fighter out there. There's also, other exclusive Smash Bros. Kind of things such as, ledge guarding, but I'm not going to show all that because I'm sure you guys know how that works and all that stuff. Another cool and unique thing about Smash Bros. Is that you have two kinds of dodges. Again, this isn't deep or technical, but it does, create some decision making. Now, when you back roll, you're in a dodge animation and you have, some invincibility frames and whatnot. But sometimes some characters have attacks where they have enough forward momentum to where if you back roll, you can still get hit by it. Now, in Sheik's case, this might not happen because Sheik has a pretty nice and far back roll. But you also have your sidestep dodge. And so when the opponent's like jumping at you, coming with an attack, you have a decision to make. Should I dodge roll? Will I have enough space to dodge roll and then counter attack like that? Or should I sidestep, let the attack go past me, and do I have enough time to just counter attack like that? So, very just, decision, based, two kinds of dodges. A lot of fighters don't really even have dodges like that, really. I know King of Fighters does, but Smash has two dodges, and you gotta choose, and, depending on the situation, which dodge you should use at the time. Okay, so now I've had to switch over to melee because the mechanic I'm about to show you is not present in Brawl, but it's called wave dashing. And this is something that Sakurai discovered. This wasn't something he created intentionally, but this is something that he intentionally left in the final product of the game. So he put this in here on the final package of the game on purpose. Think about that. But basically, when you air dodge in melee, you see that momentum, you pretty much get a boost in whatever direction you're currently holding the analog stick in. And once you dodge, you only dodge once as opposed to Brawl, and you're pretty much in a completely vulnerable state while falling down. Now what you do is you take this momentum when you do the air dodge and you jump low and you try to put it towards the ground, and that causes that slide effect right there. Now what wave dashing does is pretty much it lets you move around the stage a lot quicker and trickier than just simply sprinting. And the whole time, beginning, middle, end of the wave dash, you are in a neutral state. And what I mean by neutral state is, it's as if you're standing still, but you're not actually standing still. So pretty much you could do any move at any time, just as if you were standing still, just like right now. How I'm just doing any move standing still. So, and you guys will see this if you watch some Evo footage of melee. You won't even see the professional players, right? You won't even see them sprinting around or walking. You won't see the sprint animation. Their main source of transportation and movement is the wave dashing right there. They will wave dash across the whole stage. And you see how I wave dashed, and out of the wave dash I came with the up smash. That's the benefit of wave dashing right there.
Join me, Link, and I will make your face the greatest in Korodai, or else you will die.
Also, while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and show you guys L canceling. Now, L canceling is pretty much when you reduce the amount of recovery frames from a air attack, right? So for instance, you see this right here, this animation that Luigi does where he's, you know, kind of standing up and he's on his knee a little bit after recovering from the air attack. If I press L right before I land, you will see the amount of recovery frames greatly reduced. And what this does is that it allows you to pretty much come up with a follow-up attack much quicker, almost immediately, as opposed to if you don't L cancel, and you know, you have to wait for the animation to finish before you can make another move. So here's the animation. Oh, here's the animation without the L cancel. You can see, you know, Luigi clearly, you know, recovering from the air attack. Now here's the animation with the L canceling. You see how the recovery frames are much quicker? How I could, like, you know, much quicker come out with another follow attack because I'm using my L canceling. I'm reducing the amount of frames it takes. Oh, I didn't do it right there. I'm reducing the amount of frames it takes to recover from the animation. Alright, the next thing I'm going to show you guys is what's called power shielding. Now, when most people block in Smash Bros, they see the attack coming and they just press and hold the shield button like that, so they don't get the tech shielding. But when you power shield, that's when you carefully time your shielding and you block the attack with that outer lighter portion of the shield you guys are seeing right there. And what this does is kind of like similar to L canceling. It lets you recover much faster after from blocking an attack, and also you could reflect projectiles with it as well, as I'm going to show here. Well, right there, it blocked instead of reflecting. Oh yeah, that's because I'm not aiming, and I'm using both controllers, by the way, because I don't have anybody to help me out with this. But that's the power shield right there. You see that right there? Now, when he slashes me and I power shield, notice how quick Marth recovers from that. But let's say if I'm just shielding, you see how it knocks me back a little bit and I have to wait for a short little slide animation to be over with before I could come back with a counter attack. That's the difference between power shielding and regular shielding. You don't get knocked back, you stand your ground, and you have a lot less recovery frames. Almost instantly you could come back with another attack straight out the shielding. You could shield and straight out of the shield you could grab somebody. Let me try to pull that off by myself. See right there, that's the benefit of power shielding.
3, 2, 1, go!
So this right here, guys, is a technique called crouch canceling, and this is actually when you crouch before you get hit by an attack. And what this does is that it reduces the amount of knockback you receive from the attack. So Fox is at 20% here. He's in a standing neutral position. I'm going to use a smash attack on him. I want you to pay attention and keep in mind how far he flies and also his flight pattern. Okay, there we go. Notice the arc and how far he flew. Let's get him back here. Oh crap. I'm switching between two controllers right now because I have nobody to help me out with this video. Alright, now let's put him back to 20. Now I'm going to do it with Fox crouching. And I'm going to go up and do a smash attack. Now notice the difference. You notice he flew much lower and also kind of much slower. Now he was at an extremely low, he was at an extremely low percentage. It's much more noticeable if they're at high percentages, but I'm sure you guys saw a difference there. Crouch canceling could pretty much make the difference between whether or not you get KO'd. Because if you're at a high percentage, let's say you're at like 110%, if you crouch before you get hit by an attack, that could mean the difference between surviving it or getting knocked off screen. So it's a very simple to use, but very important, and you also gotta know when an attack is coming. You gotta know when to use it. Very important mechanic there. While we're on Ganondorf, I'll go ahead and show you guys what spiking is, also known as meteor smashing. And this is pretty much a technique you use when an opponent is off stage. You actually follow them off of the stage, you jump out there toward them, and you use a downward attack that has a meteor smash effect. And most of the time, this will pretty much guarantee a downward KO. So now I'm gonna show you guys what it's like. Let's knock him off stage. That's a meteor smash right there. I didn't recover fast enough from that, but that's it right there. And pretty much that's a really a quick way to end their stock a lot shorter than they normally would have, because if they get back on the stage, they could live longer and they could put some more damage on you before they lose that stock. Now it's not, it is an easy technique to use for anybody who is experienced enough, but at the same time, if you're playing an experienced player, you got to kind of play mind games with them, because they know the meteor smash is coming, and if they're just as good as you, they're going to know ways to actually avoid the meteor smash. So it becomes tricky when it comes between two high level players. Alright, the next thing I'm going to show you guys is directional influence, also known as DI. And this is pretty much where you hold your control stick, or whatever you're using, a D-pad depending on your controller. You hold it into a certain direction, most of the time of course opposite of where you're flying, to actually affect the trajectory of your flight path. And what this could do is that sometimes it could save you from dying. So if an attack hits you, and it'll make you kind of fly at a kind of horizontal 9-degree angle, what you could do is use your directional influence to try to make you fly more towards the corner of the screen where you have more space and you have a higher chance of surviving. So I'm going to show you guys what that is right here. And it might be hard because again, I'm controlling both people at the same time, but I'm going to try. So this is getting launched with no directional influence. Alright, look at that flight pattern, okay? Now I'm going to show you guys, let's do the same damage. Now I'm going to show you guys with directional influence. Oh crap, that's not what I meant to do. Let's get it back over here. I know this isn't the cleanest tutorial explanation of these things, but you guys get the drift. Now notice how with directional influence I flew more upwards instead of horizontally. That can make the difference between life and death, and that's a technique surprisingly a lot of Smash players don't even know exists. Very useful technique. And just like any other fighter, you have moves that act as anti-air moves. Let's put Rob on jumping right here. If somebody's jumping at me or above me, guess what? I could tilt up That's my anti-air right there. So Smash Bros has your anti-airs. Also, another thing I left out is how Smash Bros, you can actually tilt your shielding on Smash Bros. Now, for the most part, you don't have to actually tilt the direction of your shield, but as you can see right there, you see how I directed my shield lower. If you get hit by a pretty powerful attack and your shield is kind of dwindling like that, part of your body is going to be exposed. You can see how Snake's legs and the upper portion of his body are exposed when he's shielding. So what somebody could do is they could actually hit you low if your shield is that weak, or they can hit you high. So if you're in a situation where your shield is kind of low and somebody's coming at you, you actually have to decide to block low, or you have to decide to block high, just like in any other fighter. Now, it's less prominent in Smash Bros, but nonetheless the mechanic is still there. Okay, so I showed you guys where Sakurai himself said it was a fighter. I explained to you guys how Smash Bros is in and out a fighting game because it has the fighting game fundamentals, it has the fighting game mechanics. What can you do? There's no argument. Sakurai put in L canceling on purpose. That's been in since the first game. Why would he put in a technique like that if he didn't mean for it to be competitive? If he didn't mean for it to be a fighter? Why would he put in fighting game mechanics? To you people who are like, you shouldn't play with the items off. It's not only that, it's not necessarily that there's just an item switch, but there's a complete off option on the item switch. So you don't even have to go through, you see what I'm saying? Having an item switch, being able to play with no items, that's not a side effect. There's an actual off option. See what I'm saying? So you're telling us we're playing the game a way it's not meant to be played when the man gave us the option for no items. Come on, people. And here's the thing, right? I love it when I'll say, you know, oh yeah, you know, I'm a kind of no items guy for Lives Final Destination, whatever. And a lot of people get mad at me for that. But the funny thing is, people like me, us hardcore Smash players, we don't shit on you guys for using items, but y'all get mad because we don't. That don't make no sense to me. This one dude in the comment section of my last video, right? He said, Smash isn't that serious. You shouldn't be playing with items off for Lives Final Destination. It's not that serious. It's not that serious, yet y'all get mad over people's preferences on how they want to play their Smash Bros. That makes no sense. People, and I've said this before in the comments, but I'll say it in the video. The reason why we play with items off, it's simple. I shouldn't have to even be explaining this right now. The reason why we play with the items off is because items add a huge random luck factor. If you say you're better than me in Smash and we're fighting, why would we play with the items on when we could be down to the last stock? You're at 200 damage, right? I'm at 120 damage. A star spawns above your head and lands on you. You're invincible and then you just kill me. That's not fair, people. That's not fair. That's why we don't play with items. You don't see items in Street Fighter, do you? No. You don't see items in Mortal Kombat. You don't see items in Tekken. There's a reason why items tend to not be in fighting games, people. And if they are, it tends to be in a special kind of game mode or whatever, stuff like that. When it comes down to determining two skills, the skill between two players, two competitive players, items are going to throw off the determination of said skill. So for those of you saying Smash isn't meant to be played competitively, when Sakurai purposely put mechanics in the game for more advanced players to utilize, right, and to master, did it on purpose. L canceling, wave dashing, so on and so forth, right? Crouch canceling, meteor spikes, meteor smashes, and spiking. If Smash wasn't competitive, why does it have so many competitive elements, aspects, fundamentals? Why does it have teching, edge guarding, wave dashing? Smash Bros has the spacing and the zoning. It has it all. It has the anti-airing. All the basic fundamentals in a fighter, most of them you could find in Smash Bros. Because Smash Bros. Is a fighter. Sakurai intended it to be a fighter, and Sakurai also intended it to be played both casually and competitively. We just play the game and perceive the game differently than you guys do. Sakurai meant this to be an all-around game. It's obvious. He meant this for the casuals and he meant it for the hardcore players, right? He meant it for the long-time gamers and the new school gamers. When it comes to a universal game, a game that truly appeals to everybody, No game is more accurate. No game more accurately fits that description than the Super Smash Bros. Series. That's for this video. I will see you guys later. Peace.
You just got up smash.
And now, oh, Zoom, poor Zoom.
Happy feet. Wombo combo.
That ain't Falco.
That ain't Falco. Oh! Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Oh! Oh my God! Wombo combo! Oh! Get your ass whooped!
What was that? What the fuck, man?
Wow! He did not, huh?
You play that?
Nah, not yet. When the set's over. My dick hurts! Bobak's dick is hard.